This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Tuesday, the 20th day of May in the year 2025. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting, and here is what we're tracking tonight. Declaring that the United States will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Guyana in its defense of its territorial integrity, U.S. Ambassador to Guyana Nico Theriault announced today that the U.S. also stands ready to lend assistance to the Guyana Defense Force in eradicating criminal elements from the bordering Cuyuni River area.
Maduro's rhetoric is inflammatory and unacceptable. But at the end of the day, it is just bluster aimed at shoring up domestic support. It should not affect Guyana's investment climate or readiness to do business.
The U.S. ambassador made those comments while speaking at the annual general meeting of the Private Sector Commission of Guyana. Just last week, 3 GDF patrols in the Cuyuni River near the border with Venezuela came under heavy gunfire from men dressed in civilian clothing on the Venezuelan side of the border. There were no injuries sustained by any of the local soldiers. However, 2 months ago, a similar incident took place and 3 GDF soldiers were injured in the attack then. The U.S. ambassador, during her speech today, reiterated her government's long-standing support of Guyana in the border row with Venezuela, and the U.S. government's support of Guyana's case against Venezuela at the International Court of Justice. Turning her attention to Venezuela's planned elections on the 25th of May to select a governor for Guyana's Essequibo region, the U.S. ambassador said those sham elections should be seen for being nothing more than bluster.
Venezuela, of course, has also been in the news recently due to the Sindicato's acts of aggression against the GDF patrolling the Cuyuni. These are criminals engaging in criminal activity, and the United States stands ready to support the GDF in its effort to eradicate this activity along Guyana's frontier and to ensure the safety and security of Guyana's people.
The ambassador also said the U.S. is fully supportive of the ICJ's provisional measures, which have called on Venezuela to halt its planned elections for a governor of Guyana's Essequibo region, which it continues to claim.
We fully support the ICJ's provisional measures for Venezuela to halt its so-called elections in the Essequibo on May 25th, and we're extremely unhappy that they made that ill-advised decision to go ahead and move forward. You will be seeing a very strongly worded tweet coming out of the State Department very soon on that issue, and it will make extremely clear to you where the U.S. stands. Everyone should see this sham for what it is. It's saber rattling from the Maduro regime, nothing more. And no amount of bluster or saber rattling changes the fact that the United States will always stand shoulder to shoulder with Guyana in support of its sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The U.S. government has repeatedly made known its full support of Guyana. During a recent visit to Guyana, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio not only reaffirmed the U.S. government's support, but also warned Venezuela against attacking Guyana or any of the ExxonMobil assets within Guyana's waters. More news coming up in just a moment.
It all starts with one. Maybe it's one look, you know the one, or one touch, even one word. It can start with one step. Or one promise, one thrill, one first time, one deep breath, one leap of faith, one day to remember, or one night to forget. One moment, so many stories that make up one crazy, average, everyday, fabulous life. We get one life, just one. Make your move. It all starts with one.
is so much more than just four walls, floors, and ceilings. It's a lifetime of great memories and stories. Come talk to us and start your journey home today.
Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Did you know that local businesses are now providing 100% of several key services to the oil and gas sector? This highlights the significant achievements in local content development. In 2020, only 5% of selected services were provided by Guyanese companies. Presently, that number has reached 100%. Some of the fully Guyanese provided services include scaffolding, transportation and immigration support with the inclusion of visa applications. The expansion of local capacity has led to increased investments and job creation. Hundreds of companies are benefiting from the oil and gas industry, and so can you. To access opportunities like these in the oil and gas sector, visit the local content secretariat's supplier portal.
Welcome back. Let's tell you now that Amerindian communities across the country are set to receive more than $4 billion in payouts this year from the government from the sale of carbon credits to the Hess Corporation. Addressing Indigenous leaders today at the ongoing National Tush House Conference, Vice President Bara Jagdeo said the payment represents about 21% of the resources from the sale of the carbon credits. He said although less funds were received this year, the government is maintaining the same amount of money that was given to the more than 240 villages last year. Mr. Jagdeo claimed that there was some pushback from the Amerindian People's Association with regards to the allocation of the funds previously.
But they continue with this lie, this fallacy, that you, the two shows, are not representing what your people truly want, which that they don't want the money, the LCDS money. And therefore, the international community should really stop this money from coming in. It's money that we earn as a country. And you know how much this has been. We have so far, the first year was $22.7 million US dollars. The second year was $23.27 million US dollars. And this year, it will also, although we have received less this year, we've kept the $23.27 million to be given to the communities.
Over a 10-year period, Guyana is expected to receive a minimum of $750 million US dollars from the Hess Corporation for the sale of high-quality carbon credits. The sale of carbon credit forms part of the government's Low Carbon Development Strategy 2030, which is designed to monetize the country's climate and ecosystem services. In addition to the grants, the Vice President also announced that each village will receive $3 million to assist villagers with housing upgrades. In addition to the grants, the Vice President also announced that each village will receive money to assist villagers with housing upgrades. Those funds are to be managed by the village councils. Further, he said every village will receive an additional $1 million for the development of sporting grounds. The vice president said a number of villages are also benefiting from road and bridge upgrades.
But we are also going to be spending money on developing housing schemes in these communities that will get the full support of the government. Ultimately, we have to connect all of the communities in Region 8 to Region 9 through a proper road, and we will continue to allocate contracts to those communities so that they can build the connector roads.
The National Two Showers Conference will continue until the end of this week. That election fraud trial recommenced today, and the Minister of Local Government, Sonia Parag, took the stand as the hearing continued before the acting Chief Magistrate, Faith McGusty. In her detailed testimony, Parag, who was an agent of the People's Progressive Party at the last elections, recounted the hours leading up to the first declaration made by the then Region 4 returning officer Clement Mingo, and the mountain of objections that followed during the course of the controversial 2020 elections. She told the court that it was on the night of the 4th of March 2020 at the Region 4 Command Center that she observed the votes being tabulated by election officer Michelle Miller from a spreadsheet, and that they were vastly different from the numbers stated on the statement of poll that was in her possession. According to Ms. Parag, the numbers were inflated in favor of the then ruling APNU-AFC coalition. Parag said she repeatedly objected, and while Miller paused for a moment, she continued to tabulate the votes amid the objections. According to her, Miller, notwithstanding strong objections from agents of the PPP and observers on the ground, continued with the inflated numbers in favor of the coalition. Parag also testified that among those who objected on that day was current Minister Kwame McCoy, who was also an agent of the PPP Civic at the time. According to her, McCoy accused the election officials on the ground of attempting to rig the elections in the favor of the coalition. A party agent present at the time had requested that the SOPs be used instead of the spreadsheet. She said the then Chief Election Officer Keith Lowenfield later entered the room and was informed of the discrepancies. However, she said he reportedly explained that the spreadsheet reflected the numbers on the SOPs. But according to Parag, Lowenfield's explanation was met with fierce rejection. She said it was not until the president of the Bar Association at the time, Tenny Husty, flagged the practice by quoting the electoral laws that the CEO acted and instructed that the SOPs be brought in. Once the SOPs were used, the numbers, she said, correlated. However, she said not long after the SOPs were brought in, the election officer began operating at an extremely slow pace and later complained about being tired, and the tabulation process came to a halt. Parag said on the 5th of March 2020 the tabulation process never recommenced, although there was a commitment by GCOM to do so. Instead, she said the then Deputy Chief Election Officer, Roxanne Myers, at around 11 in the morning, instructed the persons present in the tabulation building to evacuate the building due to a reported bomb scare. She said not long after the returning officer, who had fallen ill, reappeared. Parag said he then attempted to declare the results of the elections, although the tabulation process was never completed. According to her, the tabulation process was far from completed at the time. Meanwhile, earlier, the AmCham observer Rosalina Razul wrapped up her testimony in court after several days of questioning. The future for private sector businesses in Guyana is bright, according to Minister responsible for Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Ashni Singh. Dr. Singh delivered the feature address this afternoon at the 33rd Annual General Meeting of the Private Sector Commission. And he told the business executives gathered that the government will continue to promote and protect private sector investments by creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive.
You have in this government a government that has demonstrated over the long term a commitment to working with the private sector, to ensuring that we create an environment that is conducive to your investments being made and your businesses growing, earning a rate of return creating jobs and generating incomes for the Guyanese people.
Dr. Singh said although the government and the private sector may not always agree on many issues, they have been able to find common ground in several areas.
Through the successive governments that I've been a member of, including the current government led by President Ali, to work closely with you in ensuring that we establish in the first instance and enhance over time the environment in which you work, and an environment ensuring the preservation and continued enhancement of an environment that is conducive to private investment, to private sector-led economic growth, and to the realization of prosperity for us as a country, and ultimately, of course, prosperity, national prosperity, which, as President Ali has often said, must translate to community, household, and individual prosperity.
The finance minister also noted that the country's oil and gas sector is significantly expanding. He charged the private sector to better position itself to capitalize on all that expansion. Meanwhile, the outgoing chairman of the Private Sector Commission, Kamal Singh, hailed several initiatives being implemented by the government, which he said have been driving private sector growth.
The single window initiative that was implemented a year ago is one that will reduce the amount of time private sector businesses and investors have to take to access approval for any development. In the past, that used to be a very monotonous, long, winding process. The single window gives us an opportunity right now to be able to plan accordingly.
Mr. Singh also said while issues of labor shortage continue to pose a challenge for private sector businesses, the business community remains committed to expanding beyond traditional ventures.
GCOM is currently conducting a national registration exercise. Who can register? Anyone who will be 14 years or older by June 30, 2025 and is a Guyanese citizen by birth, descent, naturalization, or is a citizen from a Commonwealth country living in Guyana for 1 year or more. Anyone eligible for registration is required to visit the GCOM registration office responsible for his or her area of residence to apply for registration. Persons who are already registered could apply for a name change if they have changed their names since they were registered. Apply for corrections if there is incorrect information on their national ID card. Persons who are desirous of conducting any of those transactions must provide the relevant supporting documents. Persons who have already registered must collect their new ID cards if they have not yet done so. This registration exercise will end on May 30, 2025. You need to apply for a transfer if you now live at another address since you were registered. For more information, contact the GCOM on 225-027729 or visit www.gcom.org.gy.
New York City, summer is about to get hot. Saturday, August 2nd, SR Hamilton LLC presents Gospel Infusion. Featuring Samuel Medas, Psycho, Eddie Neblett, Sean Daniels out of Trinidad, Carlvin Burnett, Christelle Brandt, Sherilyn Maloney, DJ Kesta D, and many more at the South Jamaica Multi-Service Center, 11402 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard, Queens, New York. Gates open at 4 p.m., showtime 5 p.m. Get your super early bird tickets for only $50. General admission $70. Pay more at the gate, and limited VIP $100 all inclusive. Come and experience the outpouring of God's grace Saturday, August 2nd. For more information, visit Gospel Infusion on Facebook and Instagram.
Your own home is so much more than just four walls, floors, and ceilings. It's a lifetime of great memories and stories. Come talk to us and start your journey home today.
Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Need small appliance for your kitchen? Giftland have it. Need fridge or stove? Giftland have it. Speakers or laptop? Giftland have it. I'm telling you, Giftland have everything. And don't get me started on TVs. 58 inch, 65 inch, 70 inch, 75 inch. All sizes in leading brands. Best thing about it, they give a warranty. Man, Giftland is the place for all your electronics purchases.
Washi. Hi people. Washing made so easy since I found Washi. Washing me use wash me clothes and I can say Washi soap powder wash clothes so nice. Washi soap powder leave your clothes color bright. Washi soap powder leave me clothes smelling nice, of course. So give thanks to Washi soap powder for doing my laundry right. Keep my clothes color bright. Have my clothes smelling nice for sure. I could not ask for more. Comes in lemon and original. It is a washing machine in a pack. Washi soap powder wash clothes so nice. Washi soap powder leave your clothes color bright. Washi soap powder have my clothes smelling nice, of course.
Distributors located in the Stabrook Market.
Let's turn our attention now to the sugar industry. With the government declaring earlier this year that 2025 will be the year when the sugar corporation Gaisuco will start to realize its quarterly targets and turn around its fortunes, the sugar corporation is already reporting that it has missed its first crop target by more than 19,000 metric tons. Gaisuco recorded its worst sugar production in history last year, but with hopes that 2025 would be a better year as more than $13 billion was pumped into the industry in this year's budget. In a statement last evening, Gaisuco sought to clarify a number of issues that were raised about its operations and also confirmed that it has performed poorly for the first crop. The company said its first crop production stands at 15,980 metric tons, but wants that number to be analyzed in the context of the prevailing circumstances and not be attributed to the lack of leadership by the company's chief executive officer. According to Gaisuco, its Iflot estate recorded 74 more tons than projected for the first crop, but the company did not state the performances for the other estates for the same period. Gaisuco is now saying that the weather has been affecting its strategic decisions. It said heavy and persistent rainfall severely negatively impacted the harvesting schedule, factory efficiency, and field access. The company also said recorded rainfall has significantly surpassed the long-term average, with Berbice estates recording 212% and Demerara 160% of the established long-term mean, with 53% of the available days being classified as wet days. The Sugar Corporation also blames the labor shortage for its shortfall. It said Gaisuco, like many other agricultural enterprises globally, is grappling with declining labor availability. And this is not a new issue, and certainly Mr. Chang's doing, the company said. The corporation has embarked on mechanization not only to fill the labor gap, but to improve cost efficiency over time. According to the company, Gaisuco has started the diversification of revenue, improved packaging, branding, and market access to reposition Guyana sugar. It says it is planning for the commencement of the second crop by reviewing timelines, field operations, and logistics to recover as much as possible from the canes that will be carried over. In an effort to address the high cost of air travel to the Hinterland region, the government has announced that it is currently looking at the possibility of a state-run air service operating in the Hinterland communities. Speaking this afternoon at the National Tushaus Conference, Vice President Barrett Jagdeo admitted that air travel to the Hinterland communities is unfair and needs to be addressed. He said many of the companies operating air services to those hinterland communities have been unfairly hiking their prices, which has been driving up costs for the movement of people and goods. Mr. Jagdeo said if the trend continues, the government will look to administer the service through the Guyana Defense Force.
It seems as though before every NTC, these aircraft operators raise the rate. It seems like they just wait before the NTC to raise the rates again. So we've had some discussions with them, and if they can't be reasonable about these rates, then the government will invest in a commercial arm of the GDF to compete with them so that we can keep these the freight rates down.
According to the Vice President, the government will be closely monitoring the situation and will possibly look at expanding the GDF's fleet to accommodate commercial air travel to the hinterland. Mr. Jagdeo said many of the operators have reported that the high cost to move goods is sometimes due to the middlemen chartering the aircraft and operating the service in order to make a profit.
So I want to discuss this afternoon with the two shows whether some of the villages can charter the plane too. Instead of the private businessman chartering it, they said they expressed a desire to do that, charter the plane and then arrange for the people who are using it in the villages to get the lower freight rate. We will discuss that this afternoon. That's one thing, that's a big concern of ours, because we on the coast, we have sought to tackle cost of living by subsidizing electricity and water and transportation now.
Mr. Jagdeo acknowledged that some of the villages may pose a challenge for the service because of their remoteness. But he noted that the government has also started to upgrade roads and bridges in those communities and will now move to upgrade airstrips in other communities to facilitate air services.
So we plan to also upgrade and expand a lot of these airstrips so that bigger aircrafts can go, and then especially in areas they can't go. And then if you have another service, we're going to operate a government-owned service if we can't solve this problem of the gouging, which we believe is a gouging of the market.
The cost of air travel to the hinterland communities has been an issue that many residents have complained about for several years. Minister of Amerindian Affairs Pauline Sukai says the government will further expand the Amerindian land titling and demarcation project, even as she boasted of significant progress on the project. The land titling project seeks to give Amerindian official ownership of the lands they have been occupying. At the opening of the National Tushaus Conference, which is currently on the way, the minister said Amerindians currently own more than 16% of the country's land, which accounts for the largest private land ownership here.
Our government continues to actively engage in the land titling and demarcation processes. Amerindians also account for 10% of our population, currently owning 16.4% of Guyana land mass, being the second largest private landowner in our country. These goals are rooted in the Amerindian Act of 2006, which we are currently reviewing.
The government has issued over 20 titles to Amerindian villages in the last 4 years.
Land rights have always been a priority for the People's Progressive Party civic government. While some unscrupulous person may attempt to mislead the indigenous population on this issue, I remind you that both NGOs and the NTC are represented on the Oversight Committee for the land titling, and on the LCDS 2030, the Multi-Stakeholder Committee.
It was also noted that the Amerindian Act is being reviewed with broad stakeholder participation by Amerindian leaders to craft a way forward on land titling and other issues. The minister also highlighted what she called a growing trend in indigenous villages where random district councils are being established. She said they are being created to manipulate the law and be an alternative voice for the indigenous people.
This is an effort to control your voices. I urge you to stand on the side of law and principle. You should not be used at someone else's convenience. District councils, unlike the national Tushaus councils, are optional by law. They may be created. We will ensure that where they are created or established, it is done legally and with proper due diligence. We have received multiple complaints of unlawful attempts to create such councils without village approval. These councils will only be gazetted when they comply fully with the law.
She acknowledged that although much has been done in hinterland communities, there is still much more to be done for the development of women, youths, and the Amerindian village economies. Let's tell you now that on the East Coast, the Marara family who took their own jet skis to the Splashman's Resort on Sunday has been thrown into mourning after a tragic accident involving their 2 jet skis has left their father dead. Police have identified the dead man as 58-year-old Joseph Mahadio. The police said Mahadio was accompanied by his wife and daughter and other family members to the Splashman's Resort, and they took their own jet skis there on Sunday. It was reported that the daughter and the friend boarded one of the jet skis and the father boarded the other. As they were traversing the waterway at the resort, the 2 collided with the father, hitting his head as he was pitched into the water as a result of the impact. Family members rushed in and pulled the injured man to safety. He was taken to the Diamond Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. The police said several injuries were noticed on his head and face. A post-mortem examination is to be carried out on the body. The police investigations are ongoing tonight.
The Ministry of Education wishes to announce that the Because We Care Cash Grant and the Uniform and School Supplies Grant will begin distribution from May 12, 2025. Please note, however, that distribution will begin later in May and in some cases June for certain regions. Therefore, we encourage all parents and guardians to consult the published distribution schedule to confirm when their grant will be available.
So, what's been given this year?
The grant has been increased to $55,000 per child. This includes $50,000 for the Because We Care Cash Grant and $5,000 for the Uniform and School Supplies Grant.
Who qualifies for this grant?
All public and private school learners from nursery year 1 to grade 10 who are registered and attending school are eligible. In grade 11, only students who will register for CAPE grade 12 in September qualify, along with current grade 12 students who will be continuing to grade 13. For children entering nursery this year, they must have been registered by March 28, 2025.
How do I collect the grants?
The parent or assigned guardian of the child can uplift the grant at the child's school. Just make sure to bring a valid form of ID, your national ID card, passport, or driver's license.
What if I don't have any of those IDs?
No worries, your identity can be verified by a senior official in your community, such as the school's principal or village tushao.
Suppose I can't go myself to collect it. What then?
You can authorize someone else to collect the grant on your behalf.
What happens if I miss the date?
If you miss the scheduled date at your school, a later collection date will be announced, but this will only happen after the national distribution is completed, so it's best to collect it as scheduled if possible. Got more questions? Check the Ministry of Education's social media pages or contact your child's school for more information. In service to you, because we care.
Buster presenting the new 500 milliliter. Wow, Buster flavorful. Make every meal better. Grab a Buster for drink, Buster move. Taste this. 500 ml, that's it. Buster for days, that's cool. Buster 500 milliliter is a brand new choice of my drink with my food. Vibing every munch, that's smooth. Introducing the new Buster 500 milliliter. Grab a bottle with your lunch today.
Guyana's economy is rapidly transforming, and we're all part of it. Guy Oil is at the forefront of this development by providing reliable and efficient energy and supporting community development from the very core. 100% of Guy Oil's profit goes back to building schools, roads, and other important infrastructure that connects our cities and towns, providing fuel to domestic, marine, industrial, and aerial transportation. Guy Oil has now repositioned itself as a market leader in the petroleum industry, building a better future for all of us.
Across the region tonight, with less than 1% of the poultry trade throughout CARICOM originating from companies in the region, players in the industry say non-tariff barriers are curtailing their efforts to do more business in the Caribbean. The Jamaica Gleaner reported that members of the Caribbean Poultry Association in a statement said it is easier for companies outside the region to sell their product within CARICOM than it is for regional companies to supply their own market. And this is despite recent efforts of CARICOM governments to streamline the regulations for the movement of goods within the trading bloc. Director of Sales and Marketing at Jamaica's Broilers Group, Michael Jones, said he has been involved in trade within the Caribbean region for close to 40 years, and one of the greatest challenges that he has experienced is the non-tariff barriers. He said the sanitary and phytosanitary measures implemented to ensure the safety of food imports have tremendous value, but they can also be used as a barrier for trade. He made those comments while speaking recently at the Caribbean Poultry Association's 8th International Technical Symposium and Exhibition, which was held in Jamaica. Sean Barr, the Program Manager for Agriculture and Agro-Industrial Development at the CARICOM Secretariat, had earlier revealed that $150 million worth of poultry is imported into the region, with less than $1 million coming from CARICOM countries. Anguilla's governor and the premier have secured a security aid package from the United Kingdom following discussions with UK Minister for the Overseas Territories Stephen Doughty about the island's crime challenges. During last week's high-level talks, the three officials addressed the deteriorating security situation in Anguilla, with recent shootings prompting urgent action from both local and UK authorities. The governor and premier detailed ongoing local initiatives to strengthen law enforcement, including plans to recruit additional police officers with specialized armed response training. The government of Anguilla has also decided to extend contracts for the current 6 authorized firearm officers by 6 months and is exploring options to increase the overall size of the Royal Anguilla Police Force. In response to those efforts, the minister announced a comprehensive UK support package, which includes funding for the deployment of police officers from the Cayman Islands and an extension of the UK-funded police investigator team. And finally tonight, international news. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called for Syria's transitional authorities to be supported, warning that the country could be only weeks away from potential collapse and a full-scale civil war of epic proportions. At a hearing of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he defended President Donald Trump's decision last week to lift sanctions on Syria before meeting President Ahmed al-Shara, a former al-Qaeda commander who led a rebel offensive that overthrew Bashar al-Assad back in December. Trump's rationale was that other countries wanted to help Shara's administration and send aid, but were afraid of the U.S. sanctions. There was no immediate comment from Syrian officials. The U.S. imposed sanctions on Syria in response to atrocities committed by forces loyal to Assad during the country's devastating 13-year civil war, in which more than 600,000 people were killed and 12 million others were forced from their homes. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to have a safe and enjoyable night.